Ozzie Newsome wanted the Ravens to sign Colin Kaepernick, but have met resistance from owner Steve Bisciotti. Ravens denied that report. Kaepernick also visited with the Seahawks earlier this offseason. Richard Sherman was asked why Kaepernick has not been signed and said it's not about football or color. It's about, boy, stay in your place. He played in Chip Kelly's system last year and went 16-4 in touchdown to interception ratio on a bad team. He played well because he's a good football player. He may not be the best, but he's better than a lot of these dudes starting. Not a lot of guys are willing to step out there, so the guys not speaking up for him are doing him a disservice. There should be a lot more guys saying something. Most guys are like, I don't want my job to end up the same way. Shannon, what is your reaction to what Sherman had to say?
Richard Sherman spoke the absolute truth of the matter. Because the NFL contracts are non-guaranteed, because the average NFL career is 3 years, I'm not going to take an opportunity to risk the 3 years that I might have that cut down to 1 or 2 and not have guaranteed money. See, the NBA, MLB, they have guaranteed contracts. Guys are more apt. That's why you see LeBron James and you see some of the guys in the NBA willing to take more of an out-front stance on social issues. I would like to see more players speak out, but I don't really think that's going to happen. And that also explains, Richard Sherman said a couple of weeks ago, players, if we want to get money more in line with MLB and basketball, we might need to miss some games and some game checks. But guys are not willing to risk those game checks because, Skip, oftentimes the person that's speaking out on certain issues isn't the person that necessarily benefits. It comes after the fact.
Sure.
Give you a prime example in sports, Curt Flood. He didn't get the opportunity to benefit from free agency.
One of my favorite early players, because I love the St. Louis Cardinals, but go ahead.
Yes.
And he won and lost. Yes.
He won and he lost, but everybody that came after him won.
They did.
Because we see the contracts that they're getting now. Skip.
Yeah.
And what Richard is speaking to, he sees that Colin Kaepernick, who did not abuse anyone, did not get a DUI and kill anyone, did not harm animals, didn't do anything, didn't steal property, and he gets treated like this. And he mentioned Michael Vick. He said Michael Vick got a $100 million contract. To this day, Michael Vick is the only NFL player to ever receive 2 $100 million contracts.
Yep.
He received the second one after spending time in Fort Leavenworth, a federal prison where he was running an illegal dogfighting operation. There's no such thing as legal dogfighting, but I'm just saying that's what he went to prison for and gave him a second chance. That very organization that gave Michael Vick a second chance had a receiver on that team utter the atomic bomb of racial slurs. Riley Cooper said the N-word. Not only did they not release him, they gave him a contract extension. And
I called for his release the next day. It's the most evil word in our language. Go ahead.
And if you remember, Michael Vick was sitting right there, and he said in the meeting, Chip Kelly, Michael, what should we do? He put the the black guy on the spot.
He did.
What was Michael going to say? Release him?
I don't know. We had Michael on the show, and I cross-examined him about that because I thought maybe in hindsight Michael would say, I regret that, but he didn't. He thought that was a bold and important statement for him to make. But go ahead.
Riley Cooper got a contract extension.
He did.
Even the owner, Jeffrey Luer, wrote and said, hey, he regrets that it happened. He apologized. Everybody deserves a second chance, and we're ready to move on. That's what he said with that incident. We have John Mara, who's co-owner of the New York Giants. He gave a guy 2 years, $4 million contract after the guy told him, I abused my wife. Now, John Mara was very out front and says he received some of the harshest letters he's ever received talking about Colin Kaepernick. Yet he said nothing about what fans potentially said about the Josh Brown signing. You see how hypocritical that is, Skip? But what we're starting to see is that people, the owners, not people, and some people too, but the owners view what Colin Kaepernick did worse than a guy that went to prison for dogfighting, worse than a guy using the racial epithet, worse than a guy that abused his wife and told you he did it. That's what we're starting to see, Skip. The problem that I have is twofold on a lot, because I have the utmost respect for our young men and women of the military because they give their life and some of them have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. But we'll send those brave young men and women to a foreign soil and ask them to fight for freedoms and liberties of people that's not American citizens. but we're very hesitant to fight for the very citizens that represent the United States of America. Why is that, Skip? And we're not asking you to give your life. You don't even have to leave the country. We're asking you to lend us your voice, that when you hear something and you see something that's wrong and you know it's wrong, how about you speak out and not remain silent? Dr. King says it's not the bad people doing. He said it's the silent people that don't speak out against it. This is so embarrassing. And what the town hall showed me, what Steve Bisciotti did, is that he didn't want to make the decision. He was willing to pass the buck. It's kind of like, Skip, when Ernestine comes out and says, Skip, which one? She wants you to make the decision because she doesn't want to. Steve,
I'm going to lose either.
Exactly. But Steve Bisciotti, he doesn't want to make the decision. Because in all these instances, when they signed Michael Vick, did Mr. Lurie go to the sponsors and the fans?
I agree.
What do you think? Yeah. With Riley Cooper, what do you think?
Nope.
They didn't do any of that, Skip. But they want to pass the buck. And they're quick to say everybody deserves a second chance. Colin Kaepernick does not deserve a second chance because he did nothing wrong to ruin the first chance that he got. He kneeled in front of the flag and he's asking, Skip, you go to church. I pray every night. And every night I fall on my knees and I say the very same words come out every time. I say, dear Heavenly Father, our gracious and most Heavenly Father, I come to thee in the most humble way I know how. A bowed head and bent knee. He's on a knee. And he's going before the American flag. And he says, America, there's something wrong in our society, in our communities. And I'm asking that our innocent young men and women, unarmed, black and brown men and women are being killed. And I'm not asking, all I'm asking, because we know who's doing it. These are not cold cases. These are not unsolved mysteries. We know who do it. And a lot of times we have it on camera. All I'm asking is that they be held accountable for their actions. I'm not asking for any more, any less than what I rightfully deserve. And for what these owners are doing to Colin Kaepernick, Skip, this is what you see. Owners would rather lose, have their season go down the tubes if their star to get hurt, as opposed to signing this young man who's more than willing and competent to do the job. They say we might need help, but not your help, Cap. And that's what we're seeing. And it's a shame. Richard Sherman spoke the truth, the absolute truth, because, and Michael Bennett has some great quotes in the article that suggest people, Jared Bell did a great job of writing this for USA Today. Michael Bennett has some great, he said, this is why we see such divisiveness in the NFL. Let me expand upon that, Michael. The NFL and sports are a microcosm of society. I believe race is the greatest issue that's facing America, more than health care.
Agreed.
More than taxes.
Agreed.
All this other stuff.
Yep.
Because right now, what we're seeing in America is that minorities, let me put it in football terms, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Skip. Skip, if you get the ball on the 2-yard line and you drive to midfield and you were to look back, you're like, damn, we came a long way. But in order to get the ultimate payday, you still got 50 yards to go to get the ball into the end zone. So while blacks and minorities have come a very long way, but when you look off to the horizon, you realize, damn, we still got a long ways to go.
I have so much to say about this. And I'm going to start with this before I go deeper. The one thing that slapped me in the face this morning as I read this very early this morning here in Los Angeles, and I do respect Richard's intellect. He made powerful points, most of which you have already made on this show repeatedly. But my first thought was, okay, Richard, why didn't you and your defense and your team leaders in the locker room put your money where your mouths are? Remember, just a few weeks back, Seattle was the first team that seemed to take a serious look at Colin Kaepernick, correct?
Correct.
They brought him in. I don't know why they didn't see fit to work him out. They just picked his brain for a while. Where are you? What are you thinking?
Kick the tires.
Kick the tires. Was it all for show? Was it lip service? Maybe. But the defensive leaders all spoke up and spoke out. We want this man on our team.
Right.
Would that man have become something of a threat to their starting quarterback who's had some issues with some of the players on defense? Maybe he would have. Colin Kaepernick's really good. He had a really good year last year.
Right.
I'm not saying he's better than Tom Brady, but he's a qualified, bona fide starting quarterback in this league.
Absolutely.
And he has proven that over a duration of time. So what if the moment the word broke in Seattle's locker room, we just kicked the tires? We're actually not going to sign Colin? Mm-hmm. What if Richard had stood up and then Cam and Michael Bennett and Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas, Cliff Averill, they all stood together and they said, we boycott. I know you're going to say, well, you know, you don't want to risk, you know, your non-guaranteed contracts,
Correct.
right? Mm-hmm. What if they had, seriously, put your money where your mouths are and say, we refuse to allow this to happen. Clearly, he's not a good fit for us. He's a great fit for us. Mr. Allen, Paul Allen, obviously had a lot to do with this, I'm assuming. I don't know. Maybe Pete Carroll had something to do with this.
Richardson in the NFL.
What's that?
He's the
Richardson
in the
okay.
NFL.
Okay, you got it. But why didn't they take a literal stand and say, we boycott, and if you don't bring this man in, we're not going to play game 1 or game 2 or game 3. We stand together for Colin Kaepernick. This is an injustice, because clearly it is. Great fit for them. Perfect. They need him.
Right.
Baltimore needs him, even worse, I think, than Seattle needs him, obviously. Okay, help me out here. What if they had done that? What would be the end of that? Where would it go? What if they just took the heart and soul out of the Seattle Seahawks for at least game 1 of the regular season? What would have happened?
Or at least, Skip, if they didn't take that approach, how about call your players' union, your players' association, which Sherman is the executive committee on, and say, D, how should we handle this? We see what's going on, and we don't think it's right. So how do we band
but
together?
You said yourself you don't have a lot of respect for the players' union's power, right? Or its willingness to exert said power, right? It's kind of part and parcel of the NFL establishment to a fault, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's a non-starter for Richard Sherman. Maybe he knows in his heart of hearts, that ain't going nowhere.
Well, if that's the case, then when you galvanize, you get Michael Bennett, you get Wagner, as you mentioned, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, you get some of the biggest stars outside of Russell Wilson is on the defensive side of the football. So you get those guys together and says, okay, guys, what do you think the best way to handle this situation is? And if we need to put pressure on our said team.
I mean, this is a man, Richard Sherman, who in the middle of a football game last year went to the head coach and said, don't throw the ball again from the 2-yard line, right?
Yes.
Remember that?
Remember what happened last
It's a real
time.
game. He went and said, don't do it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Out of bounds to me, but still gutsy, man. Brazen. Well, why not stand for Colin Kaepernick? Seriously, because then it would put Paul Allen on the hot seat with his other 31 owners, because they would all be sending messages or calling Paul Allen to say, you cannot fold to this. You know, you cannot buckle here. You got to stand strong for us, right?
Because that's what they're doing. They're standing strong. One for one.
Well, who wins
all
that?
For one and one for all.
Who wins that stare down between the Seahawks defense, the Legion of Boom, versus Paul Allen and basically all the NFL owners? I don't know. I would give the Seattle defense a shot in that one.
Yes.
I would, seriously. Okay, so that's putting money where your mouth is. Okay, now I'm going to go deeper. And forgive me for this. I'm just going to blurt this out. This country is facing such a racial and cultural divide right now because you see it one way and you see it blindly, passionately one way, and you can't see the forest for the trees that is the white establishment over here that sees this whole issue completely upside down from the way you're seeing it right now. So why am I uniquely qualified to try to explain this to you? I'm obviously white. I am not and never have been a member of the white establishment. The white establishment never liked me. I have worked for white establishment newspapers and television networks.
Correct.
The one I just left.
Right.
It's white establishment, man, and they never really liked me. I don't fit. I'm a communist, man. I'm too out. You know, I'm going to break the rules, right?
Yeah.
So, but I have been part of it because I grew up in it. I didn't come from money, but I won a full scholarship, which my parents could have never afforded, to Vanderbilt University. So I came through school with a bunch of kids who were on their way to becoming part of the white establishment. Lawyers and doctors and judges and leaders of companies, okay?
Right.
Captains of industry. I came up through school with them. I know their mindset here. And the disconnect is over the flag. And Richard and you and everyone, all the black players keep saying, he did nothing wrong. And trust me, every time those words come out of your mouth on this show, there are those out there watching who are white, members of they're older white people. They say, he did nothing wrong. He disgraced our flag. He disrespected our flag. Instead of saying, we in America have a race problem, which we obviously do. And I think a lot of those white establishment people will be the first to admit, we got a big problem. Again, white cops killing unarmed black men or men of color, women of color.
Yeah.
I have railed about that on this show. It's a passionate sore spot for me. And I think a lot of white people get that. But as soon as you say to protest, I'm going to protest against that flag, then you've lost it, because they're going a whole different direction. They're saying, oh, it's not a we problem. You're saying you're anti-American. You're not asking for our help. You're saying you're going to distance yourself from the flag that so many of our soldiers, and obviously black soldiers too, died for our freedom. We got attacked by Adolf Hitler over here and the Japanese over here, and somehow we won our freedom.
Right.
It hasn't been that long ago. It's just 1945. It wasn't that long ago. We were under attack from both theaters, from Europe and from the Pacific, right?
And blacks have been fighting for their freedom for 400 years.
You got it. Okay, but see, now you're disconnecting it. This disconnect is so wide because so many Americans, this is somewhere between racism and patriotism. And I don't know where that line blurs for most white people. Are there obviously some white people who are not racist, who are just super patriot? Yeah, there are. Are there some who's somewhere in between racism and patriotism? You better believe there are. But whatever it is, as soon as you disrespect the flag to make your statement, they're going to close their eyes and close their ears, and they are going to threaten the sponsors of the Baltimore Ravens. If it's a car dealership in Baltimore, they're going to say, you know what? I don't want to buy a car from that guy anymore, because really, Colin Kaepernick, he disrespected our flag. Again, this is a great disconnect. You're saying he did nothing wrong because protest has been a part of this country for hundreds of years. Yeah. It's part of our freedom in this country. But again, being blackballed here to a lot of people is being red, white, and blue balled. You get me? Because you just can't protest by saying, I don't want to be a part of you, because you know what their answer is going to be. Well, then please go somewhere else. You know how that is. I'm just trying to explain. It's not my mindset, but that's where the disconnect is here.
Yeah, well, actually, he was whiteballed because there are no black owners, so he was
okay, well, that's fair.
But here's the thing, Skip. They will look at someone, they look at Colin Kaepernick and says, he disrespected the flag. Yeah. But what about America that has disrespected so many of minorities?
Okay, you make great points, but they don't want to hear it. That's the problem.
Thank you.
And Steve Bisciotti is all ears to his sponsors right now, which is why he floated all those trial balloons at the equivalent of a town hall meeting out in his stadium with a bunch of sponsors present and the commissioner of the league sitting on a stool up by him on the dais, right, or on the stage. Right?
Yes.
And what did Steve Bisciotti start to hear? I believe, this is my 2 cents from a distance, he started hearing,
I don't want him, my season tickets, I'm willing to give them up.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay, so this great disconnect is happening, and injustice is also happening because he deserves I think everybody would agree he deserves a job.
No, he's earned a job.
He's earned a job. Right.
You can't tell me there's 100 quarterbacks that's participating in camp right now that's better than Colin Kaepernick. I'm not saying he's Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, but it's hard to convince me Josh McCown that's been on 10 teams and Fitzpatrick and Hoyer that's been on 7 apiece that are better than Colin Kaepernick.
And yet, remember, I went all the way back to 1968. John Carlos, Tommy Smith protested during the anthem at the Olympics. Remember?
Yes.
They both went on to play pro football. See, they both went back when they got drafted, but they weren't franchise quarterbacks.
Right.
They were receivers. So they went on about their lives and it was okay, right?
Correct.
But in this case, this is the franchise quarterback. It's the most sacred position in all of sports. Correct. You know this and I know this. And that's why it gets so dicey with white establishment sponsors. Ooh, he's the face of the franchise. You see what I mean?
Of course. Yeah. But the thing is, the blindest person isn't the person that cannot see. It's the one that chooses not to see.
I agree.
See, you see what's going on.
They're choosing. You got it.
Thank you.
You got it.
Because
it's a disconnect.
because of all the things that they've said. Oh, I don't agree with he did it. They have yet to mention why he did it. No owner, have you heard any owner say why Colin Kaepernick did? Okay, fine. I disagree with why he did it, but there is a serious problem. They won't even say that. They won't even acknowledge it. You know why, Skip? Because what's going on does not impact them. They have private security, and this will never touch their doorsteps. But if you had empathy, if you see yourself as that individual,
I agree.
Then you can start to empathize and realize that this is a serious problem and have some compassion.
It's easier to say nothing in this situation.
It very is, Jenny.
And it's far from over, this story. So plenty more. And
It sounds like it's about to be over in Baltimore, though, right?
But free agents, it's March 1st, so this is not, I mean, this has been a discussion for a while, and we'll see.